Well, we're going to take a few more minutes with Jason and Shannon while we've got you guys here and the kids are busy somewhere else to ask you a few more questions just in your time in Malawi. And I know it's been 18 months now since you've left and come home, and what a ride it's been so far. I know that. And so we want to hear a little bit about that as well. First of all, for those who don't know you guys, just remind us of your kids' names and their ages really quick.
So Silas is our oldest. He's 10, and Toby is 8. Fiona just turned 6, and then Naomi turns 4 this week. So every 2 years.
It's like clockwork. It's perfect. It's awesome. And no more kids on the horizon? Sorry, I just had to throw that one in there. So tell us a little bit about, as you talk about your days in Malawi, what does it look like for you guys, as especially as you've established a rhythm now? What does that look like?
Yeah. So we mentioned we drop the kids off and then we go to Partners in Hope. And so we've started to develop relationships with the people that we're working with at the hospital. So I mentioned there's a few other IT guys there. So I've been really trying to build relationship with them, get to know them better personally as well as professionally. And then also there's a chaplain who is a local pastor who's hired and works at Partners in Hope. And his role is to try and lead spiritual ministry of the hospital. The hospital wants to be not just caring for people's physical needs, but spiritual needs. So I've been trying to spend some time with him too, encouraging him, thinking through with him how we can be building the staff spiritually. So they have a chapel time every Wednesday and Friday morning for a little bit where we have a bit of worship and somebody shares. And so I've had a chance to kind of preach at that a few times. They've had a spiritual retreat with the staff, and so I was able to attend that and participate in that. And so that's been really sweet, really neat to be part of the spiritual life of the hospital as well as the physical care too.
Yeah, just to expand on what exactly the children are doing. So the 3 oldest kids go to a Christian international school, and then our youngest, Naomi, goes to sort of like a preschool, play school. It's a little bit different there. School starts really early, like we mentioned, at 7. But it also ends really early, and so we're usually rotating who's picking up the kids and having lunch with them. So parents often will have lunch with their kids, which is different. So one of us will go back and do the lunch with the kids, and then spend the afternoon doing their homework with them and doing all those typical family life things, while the other continues on in the day at Partners in Hope. So we kind of switch back and forth. And so as a nurse there, it's been really interesting, been growing a lot, learning a lot, but had chances to support the staff in different ways. They do weekly educational sessions, and so have had a chance to prepare some educational sessions for some of the nurses. And then just before we left, was kind of suddenly tasked with preparing the facility for COVID-19. So it was really busy. Actually had some crazy opportunities to just connect in with the Ministry of Health in Malawi and meet with some large NGOs and lots of players in Malawi, trying to figure out how we were going to be getting this country ready to receive patients. And so it was kind of the liaison really between some of these bigger bodies with Partners in Hope, and trying to get Partners in Hope ready for that. And so that's been a highlight in some ways, even though that sounds strange, but just being able to have opportunity to really use some of my skills to work with the facility. But then also when we're working with the MB Church, we've had different opportunities to be able to support them. For me, I took some trauma training coursework, and so then was able to come with some of the pastors in the refugee camp to run some healing times for some of the people. They've experienced a lot of trauma, and so we would have healing groups every week.
Can I interrupt you just for a sec? Just so that everybody knows, kind of when you talk about the MB Church and such, you guys got connected with this not by accident, but not planning on this when you went. But tell us a little bit, because this church is in a refugee camp. How many people are in this refugee camp? Which is,
So there's a refugee camp just north of the city that has about 45,000 people in it. And it's kind of crazy to think about Malawi, one of the poorest countries in the world, having a refugee camp when they often can't provide for their own citizens. So it's tough life for refugees there. But we've gotten to know this really neat guy, goes by the name Safari, who came as a refugee from Congo in 2009 and started a small Bible study group, which now has grown into 37 churches that are in the refugee camp, but also in some of the rural Malawian villages surrounding the area too.
That's incredible.
And so it's just so neat. We had people from North Langley who came with other people from the MB Church in Canada to do some short-term work. And so it's just really neat how through that we were able to get connected with Safari and his group of churches.
Yeah, so we just kind of continue, and however, we want to support them. They're already doing so many things, like God is using them in so many ways, and so we just sort of support them where we can that's helpful for them. So for example, even a lot of their women have been trying to do some vocational work to try to support their families, and I was able to connect a business owner in Malawi to some of the work they were doing so that they could have sustainable work. So things like that, again, being that bridge between communities of people. And then Jason...
So because they've grown so rapidly and because they work with refugees and rural people who don't have a lot of money to give, they don't have a big administration office with a big administration team. So that's been a challenge for them a little bit to manage that side. So it's been really fun to come alongside a few of their team and train them how to set up an accounting system and not just track paper receipts, but actually record things properly. I was able to help them set up a website. They really wanted to be able to share the stories of what God is doing through the church. And so that was really fun to work with the team to be able to do that.
Yeah, and that helps facilitate some of those partnerships that God has allowed us to help them make, with some Canadian organizations and stuff to be able to have some of these things figured out for them. Yeah.
It's so cool to think about. Like, this word that comes to mind when I think about what you guys are doing, not only in your roles at Partner in Hope, but also with the MB Church, is influence. That God has given you guys influence in the hospital, but also in the refugee camp, in the MB circles that are there as people grow in their faith and use your gifts to be able to reach people. Like trauma training, Shannon, like how incredible is that? Like how important is that? And you've been able to train, and Jason, to be able to do some of the IT things, like I mentioned earlier before on camera, but IT I think is a very godly thing. It's needed and it's important because it helps us communicate kingdom things in a very clear way and be able to get the stories out there. So I love that. Last question for you guys is just thinking about, I don't know, maybe to be vulnerable for a moment, what is maybe a joy and a struggle for you guys even right now in Canada and your family? What does that look like? Maybe something, a joy and a struggle for you guys, because it's a way for us to be able to celebrate with you but also pray for you guys as well.
Yeah.
I think maybe the joy is that I think even in the rush of our leaving and all the things that were happening, I think that we were really coming to a point of being able to have deepening relationships with the people at Partners in Hope, and we're really starting to have friendships start to build. And I guess that's the pain part too, is just feeling like now we're going to be gone for a little while, and how do we do that well? How do we maintain those relationships? And I think too, like, the journey for learning a new language was really difficult, and I feel like we made such good progress for the first 3/4 of a year, and then had so much interruption with different struggles with it that we've kind of really struggled with the language. And I think that was becoming now it worries us even more to be gone for 6 months, and how are we going to pick up the language again? And it's just, so I think, those are sort of weighing on my mind a bit, like how are we going to be able to deeply connect again? It's going to take time again, and
I think for me, just being back in Canada, it's one of the joys has been how we've been cared for in this quarantine time, and have had people from the church who have been stopping by, and how it's just been so special to reconnect with people that we haven't seen in a long time, and just share, even from a social distance, share life with them a little bit. That's been really special. I've really appreciated that. I think, the sad thing is being distant from people that we did become close friends with through the school and the church and our work back in Malawi too. And we just recognize that's part of the life of living cross-culturally. We do have 2 homes now and 2 sets of churches and 2 sets of friends. And that's a blessing, but it can be sad at times too.
Yeah.
I bet. Well, it's encouraging for us to know what to come alongside you guys for in prayer. And I want to just encourage you on behalf of everyone who's watching this to say, it's just, again, this influence that God has given you guys to be at work in daily life across the world. It's not a decision that everybody makes or a calling that everybody feels, but you've called it, you've pursued it. I know that, even from the dreaming stages to leaving to now being 18 months gone and back, there's so much in your hearts, and yet all through that you've seen God be faithful, and look forward to his continued faithfulness in all seasons. And so really appreciate you guys, love you guys, and look forward to seeing you more. And I know that soon you'll be doing a Zoom call probably with a lot of people who just want to just come in and just maybe live Q&A and hearing you guys sharing a little bit too. So we'll look forward to that. So thank you guys so much, and bless you.
Thanks.
Thanks.